Good day, guys.
How you doing, Kino?
Okay, and you?
I'm all right under the circumstances.
Hi, Alpha.
Hi, Kino.
How are you?
I'm good. Oh, now I can connect.
If
Wow.
only the listeners knew it took us just under 30 minutes for all of us to be in sync with each other.
Let's look at
Connecting
where we
from
are.
different parts all around the world.
You're in South Africa. Alpha's
Yeah.
in West Africa, and I'm North America. So, it does present some logistical
Yeah,
challenge.
Yeah. So, like for the listeners,
Well-
first we attempted Zoom. Zoom never worked out for Alpha. Then we decided to transition to StreamYard, which is the platform I use. Then we had some audio issues at the start of that. But then when each of us went out and came back in, we managed to get this episode going.
Here we
So,
are.
yeah.
And
Oh,
so do you want to? This is our second, and we realize that we have been sporadic for a variety of reasons: illness, crises, and depression, and also all of us being very busy. And in fact, one of our guests for today, Kelly Flynn, unfortunately, because of the renewed bombing of Gaza, has had to return to Oslo. She's a member of the Norwegian People's Aid NGO for urgent briefing. This is a terrible. We're watching genocide in our time, and of course, she, like so many of us, are deeply hurt and disturbed by it. So, but that's fine, because what Kino and I have been talking about, and I think it's really critical, is that this particular show, Creating Team Human, has got to continue, because God, if we've ever needed it, it's now, where we come together as humanity to stop these kinds of outrages and start to think and operate like a single species that we are. And so we want to, what we're going to attempt to do is to have a regular broadcast every the last Sunday of every month. And sometimes there'll be 3-4 of us. Sometimes there'll be a guest like today. And we're going to welcome Alpha Jallow to the show and welcome him to the panel. And hopefully he'll be part of the panel as we move forward. I had the good fortune of working with Alpha when I was working in West Africa. And Alpha was my colleague, and he was the country director of the West Africa Rural Development Center, and a program that I was operating for the Canadian International Development Agency. So we became not only great colleagues, but great friends. And we've had, I've had the good fortune of staying in touch with Alpha ever since. Alpha has dedicated his life to working in rural development. And he's also had some tragedy, very much a part of what third world reality is today, in the sense that his oldest son died trying to get to Europe 6 years ago. And that desperation that affects so many countries in the world, an increasing number, as global poverty increases and global disparity in wealth increases, is only going to increase. So it's a challenge that we're all facing. I think that we started off this show a month and a half ago with a statement about how we're tired of waiting for the world to become a better place, and it's time for us to work toward making it that. So that's what we're doing. That's what we're trying to do here. And again, that's a bit of an introduction. Kino, why don't you take it from there?
Yeah, no, I mean, that quite sums it up. So just for the listeners, as Don said, we started this 1.5 months ago, I think even more, episode 1. And the plan was to have a panel each and every single month with a variety of guests, humanitarians, all around the world. Unfortunately, as Don said, we get so caught up. There's people out there like Kelly are doing important work. And due to this unfortunate circumstances, a panel of 10 comes to now 3. But we're still going to make it work, because we've created our Facebook page as well, our group, We invited members to join the group. So we want to get as much content as we can out there in order for us to create Team Human. It's not just about who's on the panel, but also about the community we can build globally. So, Don and I were like up and down today. He motivated me to come on because I got the flu. And then he was like, okay, Kelly can't make it. Is it worth it for Alpha, you and I? I'm like, okay, no, we can make this work. We can make this work. So the episode today or the panel for episode 2 was supposed to be about immigration, worldwide immigration. But unfortunately, we need more than 3 to touch on that subject, which Alpha, you have history with. So what we're going to do for the next, 25 minutes, give or take, is Alpha, if you can just give us, background history about yourself, the work you're currently involved in. You're more than welcome to mention, personal stories as well, as part of your introductory to creating Team Human. And then, of course, when Kelly is available and we have like maybe up to 7, will even be good enough. In episode 3, then we'll have the panel to like touch immigration. So that's where we're at the moment. Just trying to push out episode 2 this week.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. It's a pleasure, and I've been looking forward to such a meeting to join the team. After several failed attempts, which shows the challenges that you find in Africa here. One, it's technology challenges, but sometimes it's not only even the lack of those facilities or technology, but even the knowledge, the capacity to do this. So, but it's the reality. This is the world that we live in today. It shows the disparities when it comes to development, you see. So especially those that they consider the third world, those of us who are in this part of the world. But you see, it's for me, I am so happy to join this forum of yours. I've heard a lot and I've seen your interventions, Kino, through Don, of course. And Don has been my colleague for many years, from the it was around the mid 90s,
Right.
around the mid 90s until the 2020, until when Don was last here, when he last visited the Gambia or worked with us here around 2006, was it?
That's you got a better
Don,
memory than that.
yeah, so it's a pleasure joining this team, which we call Team Human. And for me, the name is, it's just unique, and it's very significant. It's important because we are talking of what humanity is facing today, with all the racism, the discrimination, the differences when it comes to the disparities, when it comes to income, the opportunities, if you look at people from different parts of the world. So this is the reality, and really we need people who are more human and who are ready to open up to the differences and appreciate the differences, that is diversity that you have in the world of today. And it seems we are people who think alike and who have so much empathy for the world of today and for mankind, and with what we are facing, especially in parts of the world where we have war, in Gaza today, as is happening. So we have us team members from different parts of the globe joining in. So I think there is nothing more unique than this team, and I cannot find a forum more important than this forum. So that's why I'm really excited to join, and I think there is a lot that we can share and inspire each other, and also maybe guide each other towards our different interventions in our different parts and different ways in the world, in our communities as well. So that's just kind of my feeling and expression of how I feel being part of this team and being part of this forum.
Alpha, could you
About me,
give it? Yeah, I was just going to say it's a bit of your background.
yeah. So it will be, of course, a dialogue between us, so that it won't be. I know if you let me, I'll go on and on and on, and I don't want it to be a monologue. But like Kino asked, a brief about myself, which wouldn't be new to Don. He would be smiling, I know, when I start, But I am, yes, I'm Alpha Usman Jallow from humble beginnings in the Gambia, of course. I, I've grown up in what we consider as, the metropolitan part of the Gambia, which is mixed. You have different cultures, very diverse, different peoples. And I think that has helped shape my, the way I see the world, and, my upbringing and whatever. So that was how it all started in the Gambia here, and then after having gone through the so-called Western education, that some of us go through.
That was in
With
Switzerland,
all,
right? Alpha, that was in Switzerland where you studied?
yeah, that's I'm talking of education in the Gambia here, even from the primary to the secondary levels, which is basically, ironical that it's Western education. And if you look at the curriculum and all that, it's geared towards making us very good, I don't know, British Africans, as it were. So, you so yeah, went through that and ultimately got some, qualifications that, Don, you are saying, that opened up the opportunity for me to work with various, NGOs and institutions in the Gambia. That's how it started before I went out abroad. So my university actually was up country when I went to the rural areas working with farmers, out there I was working with NGOs that were into development interventions, working with poor and marginalized groups, women and children. So that was how it all started. And whilst out there, I was involved in literacy, helping people to learn in their own languages. And what led me to do that was the discovery. Just after leaving school, I had a brief stint with the Peace Corps, the American Peace Corps. And, given that stint, I was training them the local languages. And actually, it was from there that I discovered that, in fact, my native language could be written. Actually, I thought that our languages could not be written. And when I discovered that these volunteers, be it Americans and British volunteers, would come to the Gambia, they would learn our languages using a script, which is a written script different from English, and they would learn the languages. That was how I discovered this. Then I said, wow, come on. Now, if this is the case, so it's not only English that can be written, and Arabic and Portuguese and so on. So as long as our national languages can be written, then one of our challenges is high levels of illiteracy in this country. And people can speak their languages, but they cannot read and write in their own languages. And that's the challenge. So that is how now I left, the urban area and the Peace Corps and where the money actually was. And I went out up country and engaged with Action Aid the Gambia, and then worked with poor farmers. Then I started establishing literacy schools, adult literacy centers, and child literacy centers as well. And that exposed me to other parts of Africa, traveling to Ghana, Ethiopia, to see how it was done there. And then I came back and also worked on that. And eventually that led me to, I think that was from the early 90s, from 1990 going to 94 when I met with you, Don. After that, again, it was in 2000. That is after I just came back from Switzerland after doing my master's program. And, then we had this project that you were project director, that's CEDA funded project. Yes, I had gone to, of course, expose myself outside, that's Europe, and also get, higher certificates and so on. So I studied in Switzerland and did human resource management and stayed there, and then traveled far and wide in Europe, and then came back. I did not stay as a refugee. I decided to come back home because I had job to do. So that was how I came, and then then your project, the CEDA funded project came, and then I got engaged and continued working with you, Don, after 6 years of a break. So yes, that's how it all started. And then we did a lot of work, Don, and Kelly also joined us at some point. Kelly joined us at some point, and we trained a lot of community development workers, because actually it was all about development work. And, we also worked together to pilot this in Ghana, So we traveled together. We had programs in both Gambia and Ghana. And this had a great impact for West Africa, because if that program started attracting participants even from Sierra Leone, Nigeria, to the WARD, that is the West African Rural Development Project that we had here in the Gambia. So so that project went on until when it phased out, and then we've still been in touch. I've lost touch with Kelly, but you see, Kelly is still dedicated and doing humanitarian work out there in Gaza and other really very dangerous places. So and Don has retired now, but after after working in different parts of the world, Jamaica, Africa, but for me, I'm still young, and I'm going, so I'm still working as a development practitioner and a politician. So I feel you cannot divorce politics from development, because I know our major challenge in Africa here is our leadership. And that's why, I think it's important that in as much as we start working at community level and helping to empower them, but the seat of government is, I think that's where the challenge is for Africa, leadership. And with all these things that we are experiencing, the immigration, the poverty, corruption, all the vices that we see associated with Africa, I think majorly now it's about leadership crisis that we face. So yeah, here is where we are now. I would pause for a while, and then we'll continue on with the discussions. Hi, Don, Kino.
I just wanted to jump in because, I mean, as I'm listening to you, and you're right, I have heard this, but in bits and pieces. You have an extraordinarily broad, I don't know about understanding, but knowledge and exposure to human cultures, to humanity, from Europeans to, and when you talk about local languages in the Gambia, though it's a small country, you have at least 9 distinct language groups, right? Is that fair to say?
Yeah, come on again with the last bit. What's your question again?
I said you have about 9 distinct language groups in the Gambia. Is that right?
Right, right. In fact, actually, yeah, distinct. It's good that you underline that because we have, other languages, but then you will have dialectic differences. But yes, distinct. Yeah,
So we're
that's
talking.
it. But you
Sorry.
know, uh-huh.
You know,
You know. Uh, here we, sorry. Um. Here now, from those languages, we have identified, we call them the national languages, for the Gambia. And that is, of course, the Mandinka, Wolof, and Pular. That's the Fula, and which group I belong to. And then after that, you have the Jola, Sarahule, and Serer. All right. And so there again, you have 6. Then the 7th, the Manjago would come in. But then you have other smaller ethnic groups or languages.
what I was getting at was that you've lived in a small country. How large is Gambia now? 2 million, 3 million?
Yeah, getting to with the last census, it was 2.5, 2.8 million.
So, and
Not
yet
yet 3 million.
when we talk about, when I say we, people generally talk about tribalism. They tend to talk about sort of these traditional cultural groups, not about the Dutch tribe or the Swedish tribe, or the German tribe. They talk about the Mandinka and that sort of thing. You've grown up and worked in a multi-tribal, if you will, multicultural society, and you've also been out into the other tribal areas, even though they call them Europe or wherever. So what, and you've been able to make that work. And we're talking about trying to create Team Human to get beyond those tribal divisions and hatreds and distrusts. From that experience that you've grown up with and that you've lived with and been educated in, what do you take from that? How do we get beyond those tribal divisions?
Well, thank you, Don. Very important. One thing which I know is not unique to the Gambia, but I would say not even unique to Africa, is the diversity in in terms of language groupings. Imagine, like you said, Gambia being so small, where it is widest, it's like 25 kilometers. The widest is not more than 40 kilometers, let's say, which is around the coastal area. But further up country, it's like 15 to 20, 25 kilometers. That's width of the Gambia. And then in terms of length, we know it's 412 kilometers. So as much, some would say 48 kilometers, 440. That's it. So less than 500 kilometers length. So we are talking of a country which is so small in size. But now imagine having all these different language groupings living in there. So yes, this you can see and you can learn a lot. And it's what is actually happening in other African countries, which are, of course, bigger with maybe 200 different tribes. But now for Gambia, so small, and even having these 9 distinct tribes here alone would tell you, it's like a case study, and you can see what's happening. Now, one thing about the Gambia is, which Don, it's called the Smiling Coast of West Africa. What makes it or Smiling Coast is you have people who smile a lot. And one reason is people who cherish, they value peace. That's why even in our greetings, Don, it's like, peace, you have peace only. Have you got, yes, it's very peaceful evening, peaceful morning. It's all about peace. So we value peace a lot. And when you're talking about peace, it is about peaceful coexistence. You know, of course, we have religion, you have Christianity, you have Muslims, Islam, you have atheists, you have animists, African, our African religions. We all here in this small country, but, people tolerate each other. We accept our differences. In the Gambia here, you hardly hear tribal wars in the Gambia here, or even religious wars. Do your research and find out. Hardly. Why? Because actually, even the people are the same too. It's the same people. You have the same family. Some are Christians, some are Muslims, and some are still they believe in the cultural, our gods. So now that it doesn't make us see ourselves as enemies. So we coexist, we live together. And because we value peace and harmony, that is why, in fact, culturally, we have checks and balances that are there. I think Don, in the Gambia here, we have what we call these bonds in terms of relationship, where a Jola, someone who belongs to one ethnic group, would dare not fight with another who belongs to another ethnic group, because then the gods will be angry with you. So you dare not lift your hand. A Fula dare not lift a hand against a Serere, because there are these blood ties, and then there are what we call, these laws, divine laws that no one dare, go against, because then, something evil may happen to you. So this kind of thing are happening, and those are some checks and balances that ensures that there is peaceful coexistence between the tribes. And I think other ethnic groups, tribes in other parts of the world, I don't want to limit myself to Africa or other parts of Africa. When we hear things happening in Southern Africa or in East Africa, we in the Gambia, we are like, this is not Africa. What we are hearing in those parts of the world are actually not African. But it's just because we don't think it can happen to Africans, given culturally what we know of our heritage, cultural heritage, even history, African history. But actually, I think for those of us who have had more exposure, we understand some of these differences and even tribal wars that we have as a result of some historic events, especially with the coming of, missionary activities, Western, colonialism and divisions, various history that has helped divide Africa a lot. Sometimes it's as a result of religion, religious crusades. Also, we know slavery, the slave trade and colonialism, the partitioning of Africa. All these things are things that have, I believe, exacerbated, increased the tensions between Africans, and also kind of, created differences that never existed before, So, but for us in this part of the world, especially Gambia, I think we are blessed with still having, these cultural and traditional practices and beliefs with us. So I am, yes, Don.
What makes Gambia unique? You talked about it as a microcosm, and when we talk about Jola and Serahuli and Fula and Mandinka, we're talking about very distinct peoples with very different histories and backgrounds. I mean, you could look on them as nations, really, and yet somehow, and I completely agree with you. My experience in the Gambia suggests that these groups, distinct as they are, have really found a way to, as you say, to collaborate, cooperate, to coexist. And you're talking, and I understand that there's sanctions against not doing this and doing that, but still there. And I like that idea of peace. Because you're right, almost all of the greetings have to do with peace. Peace be upon you, and so forth. So what is it though? I mean, things aren't working out so well, say in Nigeria. So what is it about Gambia that you've learned as a people, as a nation, that allows you to overcome those tribal differences?
Well,
Also,
like I said, Don,
before you
yeah,
continue,
Kino.
Let's a Kino.
In order to make the coordination of the podcast work, we have to cut it off in 4 minutes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Or it's not gonna, filter how we want it to filter into the panel.
Can you edit? Can you edit it?
So, like, if we go into further depth, like, I could probably sit and listen to Alpha the whole day.
I know. I know.
I could, but unfortunately, we can't do it, at this point. So, if we go deeper than we have now already, then it'll, the whole point of the panel, will be like pointless.
So, what I'm trying to get at, and I think Alpha's already touched on a lot of this issue, but what is it that, let's assume, and I know it's a big assumption, that that the Gambia has created Team Human. I mean, sort of. How have they been able to do it, and how can we transfer it? That's really what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah, I think we can conclude with that. That would be a great question to conclude with.
Okay.
Right. Are we going back to your question? What was your question, Don?
Yeah. Okay. You can edit this, right, Kino?
Yeah. No, we keep it casual. We don't need to edit any of it. It's natural. It's casual.
We only have 4 minutes, all right.
Nice. Right. So, in order for what I'm planning to, work out in the long run, we got that 4 minutes.
Okay.
It's actually,
okay.
So we can conclude. We can conclude with the last question.
Yeah.
In Gambia, there's unity, there's peace. Even though there's like diverse cultures, diverse religions, it's managed to work where you are at the moment. So how do we transition, those values, those principles, those SYs, whatever you want to call it, into the global community to work?
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. I'm not sure whether I've got you clearly, but basically, let me just try and come in since we have 4 minutes. Maybe I can touch. I think what's happening to the Gambia is not unique to the Gambia alone. That's a fact. But then Gambia is a very, very good example for the rest of the world to see and learn from. And this can be transitioned to other parts of the world through, of course, it's all towards education, raising awareness, people knowing what is happening in other parts of Africa, and looking at the bright side of Africa and not only things that are not working. So I think there should be a paradigm shift when it comes to focusing on what is happening in Africa using the media, be it television, be it radio, the print media, I think, or internet. I think Africa should do more in, selling out or showing out the bright sides of Africa. And this is one way that what is happening in the Gambia can be transferred, or others can learn about it and then start adopting that. So as I'm saying, there is tolerance. In fact, except for few coups that we know of politically. Of course, you know what our current democracy, so-called democracy, how divisive it is for especially Africans who are more communal in nature and who don't align themselves to the so-called Western democracy that is said is the best system of governance and education. These are all things that, for Africa, and it creates some divisiveness in the people who believe in family. They believe in community and so on. So people would vote for people who they relate with. People will vote for people not because of anything, but because they speak the same language grouping and so on. So that kind of anticipation that true democracy is this or that, and the yardstick that is being used, those are the things that you can see politically. You can see some differences in terms of ethnic groups, and then people misinterpret this as either tribalism or ethnism and so on, when actually it is not what is considered as nepotism or tribalism and seen as vices. No, these go a long way in helping to strengthen and so certain bonds that are together. But it has to be in the general good, for the general good, not when it is directed towards doing harm, harming society, harming this thing, and working towards helping in corruption and empowering the evil side. No, but as long as it can help bring people together and see that good prevails, like even these, as we see what is happening in Burkina Faso now, saying that leaders should have, there should be a certain limit. Maybe you should be president for 2 terms, and then that's best practice, and it should stop. For Africa, it could be different. We can have a leader who could serve for maybe for 5 terms, as long as the leader is delivering and the people want him there. Whatever best practice democracy America and other Western countries would perceive. Like today we have someone, young people in Burkina, in Niger, Mali, and so on coming up. Of course, they took power through the barrel of the gun. But if they are doing things which others would perceive as dictatorial, but others see as bringing together, like Thomas Sankara and others, bringing ethnic groups together, um, bringing development to the people and changing the lives of people for the better, then um, putting politics aside, that's the African way, and that's the way to go. So these are the sorts of things that we should promote. All geared towards, of course, eventually, I think it would be the unification of Africa, when Africans would see themselves as one people, and so on. So I think the 4 minutes are
we can
gone.
move out from Africa as we did 75,000 years ago, and then we can start to see all of us as one, right? Africa, Europe, Asia, and that's the point. I mean, I hear what you're saying, that whole Pan-African, but then we take that and we move out. It's not, like I say, 75,000 years ago, and you've populated the rest of the world. So now we're going to have to do that with that tribal unity too.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Don. And speaking this way, it's like someone is right there down on the drain, and you can't. So for there to be equality and oneness and so on, you have to draw this other one out of the hole or out of the ditch, and then that is when now you can walk towards talking about humanity and seeing the world as as one global this thing. So I know the spirit and the team. What we represent here is not Africa alone. There you are from Canada, others from different parts. So it's the globe, it's the world as one. That is true, and that's the spirit, and that's who we are as a team human. But like we said, you see how the discussions are going. It is all geared towards how to at least bring kind of parity, where for us to achieve that, we'll have to force. What do you call it? Sometimes do they like this gender thing, women, this thing. What's the term in English even? It's like you push for the agenda of the women, you know. Well,
Gender
there's
inequality.
a term. Huh?
Gender inequality.
Yeah,
Gender
yeah,
equality.
gender. Yeah, but it's oh man. Anyway, that's English. If it was in the native language, I would come up with
You
that.
supported gender
Sometimes
equality. You supported gender equality your entire life. That's kind of,
affirmative. It is like affirmative. Affirmative. Is it action where you know you support you kind of want to uplift a certain gender or people, affirmative action, so that at least when they get to a certain, when there is parity, then that's where now you can talk about equality or equity and all that. I'm not sure, but then there we are. Kino.
you're saying that before we can start to talk globally, we've got to get some parity locally. I got that.
Yeah.
There's
I
so
mean,
much to unpack there, and we don't have time, because I think that idea of Western democracy, does it fit in a traditional system? And it doesn't mean that people don't choose their leaders, but maybe they choose them in a different way. And there's not just that one, and we're seeing that has its limitations. That's for sure. So it's a really some good questions there that we need to explore, but not today.
Yeah. I think, okay. So, I mean, it was a good introduction to who Alpha is, what he represents, and how he's going to help us to continue building, creating Team Human, not only in Africa, but globally. So I'm going to end the record now, that we can just stay on and just, give the goodbyes for the next time.